Welcome to Asia Outlook. I'm Melody and I'm here to report the top stories from around Asia. Thailand marks the 15th anniversary of the tsunami that claimed more than 8,000 lives on the country's scenic Andaman coast. Commemoration ceremonies were held in several locations that were hit by the deadly waves. The tsunami was triggered by a magnitude of 9.3 quake, which struck off the coast of Sumatra of Indonesia on the December of 26, 2004. Some 230,000 people were killed in a dozen countries. It was one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. People across Asia were giving a rare glimpse of a special variation of the solar eclipse. It's dubbed the Ring of Fire, when the moon is far enough from Earth to leave a small area around the sun visible. Sky gazers from the Middle East, Southern India, and Southeast Asia were all able to witness the full phenomenon. It's the last eclipse of any kind this year. In the Philippines, at least 11 people have been killed after drinking a local coconut wine known as lambanok. The poisoning happened in the provinces of Laguna and Quezon, south of the capital Manila. More than 300 individuals are receiving medical treatment. A hospital official said most are now stable, having been diagnosed with methanol poison. Animals living in mountainous areas of Shenojia National Park in central China's Hubei province have been enjoying the recent snowfall. Let's take a look at this beautiful sight. Japan's foreign ministry has said that Russia has released 24 Japanese fishermen and their vessels from detainment. They were held last week after Russian inspectors said they had exceeded their catch limit of octopuses. Japanese public broadcaster NHK reported the fishermen were fined about $100,000 before their release on Tuesday. The catch limit was set by a 1988 agreement between Japan and Russia, which sets quotas for catches of 4 disputed islands, called the Northern Territories by Japan and the Kurils by Russia. India is in the midst of social uncertainty. Let's hear more from CGTN's Nayan Seth.
Demonstrations against the citizenship law have intensified, with protesters demanding a rollback. But the government isn't backing down. On Tuesday, the cabinet approved $550 million for a census and population survey called the National Population Register, or NPR, slated for next year. Many argue that the new set of announcements would set the stage for the controversial National Register of Citizens, or NRC, opposed by a large section of society. So how does it work on the ground? Let's begin with the NPR. Authorities say the aim of the NPR is to create a comprehensive identity database of every usual resident. This includes both Indian citizens and foreigners. Local officials would go to each household and collect data. The information will then be verified, and individuals whose citizenship is doubtful would be put on a doubtful list. Once the NPR is completed, analysts say the government is likely to go ahead with the National Register of Citizens. The NRC would include data of only Indian citizens. All citizens, including those on the NPR doubtful list, would be required to submit documents to officials. If excluded again, a person could be declared a non-citizen. In August, the NRC was conducted in the Indian state of Assam. around 2 million people were rendered stateless. Many experts say the final move in the process would likely be the recently passed Citizenship Amendment Act. The law provides that Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis and Christians fleeing persecution in Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh can be granted Indian citizenship, but it excludes Muslims. So in simpler terms, it could be easier for Hindus and other minority groups to gain citizenship, but Muslims again may be left out. Opponents say the overriding motive is to marginalise the Muslim community and strip them of Indian citizenship, but the government argues that there is no plan to conduct a nationwide NRC yet, and there is no link between the NPR and NRC.
This is Asia Outlook broadcasting from Myanmar International Radio. You can visit our website at mradio.com.mm. You can also listen to our programs live on the website. Let's see how different countries celebrated Christmas.
This just in. We've obtained visual confirmation that Santa is currently traveling south over India. We checked in with NORAD, and according to their satellite infrared sensors, it appears that Santa is bearing toward Sri Lanka right now.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has said that China and Japan should show the world their resolution to join hands in tackling social issues, taking care of sensitive issues of major concern, and contributing to regional and global peace, stability, and prosperity. He made the remarks in a recent interview with CGTN's parent company, China Media Group, ahead of his trip to Chengdu, southwest China's Sichuan province, for the 8th China-Japan ROK leaders meeting held on Tuesday.
There is a huge need for infrastructure development around the world. As for the Belt and Road Initiative proposed by China, all the participating countries at the G20 Osaka summit this year reached an agreement on the principle of quality infrastructure investment. We expect relevant projects to follow this principle and international standards such as openness, transparency, economy, and debt sustainability, so as to bring benefits to more countries. In third-party markets, it's very important for Japan and China to join hands to promote cooperation in accordance with international standards.
United States President Donald Trump has talked down speculation that the DPRK is planning a long-range nuclear test. Pyongyang has threatened the U.S. with an unspecified Christmas gift as denuclearization talks remained stalled. After a phone call with military leaders, Trump said the U.S. is ready to deal with any surprise move by Pyongyang.
Maybe it's a nice present. Maybe it's a present where he sends me a beautiful vase as opposed to a missile test. Right? I may get a vase. I may get a nice present from him. You don't know. You never know. We'll find out what the surprise is and we'll deal with it very successfully. And let's see what happens.
At least 26 people were killed and 14 others were injured after a bus with 50 passengers on board plunged down a hill and tumbled 150 meters into a ravine in Indonesia's South Sumatra province late on Monday and ended up in the river. The accident happened in the remote and steep area, hampering rescue efforts. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has announced the plans to send troops to Libya, following Tripoli's request for military backing. Erdogan said he will present a bill to the Turkish parliament in January for the deployment to the North African country. Ankara signed 2 security accords a month ago with Libya's internationally recognized government of Fayez al-Sarraj, who has been fending off a month-long offensive by Khalifa Haftar's forces in eastern Libya. The trilateral meeting between China, Japan, and ROK is around the corner, but tensions remain high between Tokyo and Seoul. Disagreements over wartime forced labor compensation claims have led to a trade dispute, and solving that dispute is expected to be at the top of the agenda when the leaders met. CGTN's Jack Barton has more.
At the last trilateral summit, China, South Korea and Japan sought common ground on diplomacy aimed at securing denuclearization on the Korean peninsula. This time, the focus will be solving a diplomatic row after Tokyo unexpectedly slapped trade restrictions on Seoul.
They restricted the exports of 3 crucial chemicals that are needed for semiconductor production. Now, because Korea's largest export item by far are semiconductors, not having these chemicals means that Korean production of these semiconductors will be vastly restricted.
The move was alleged retaliation after some Japanese companies had their Korean assets confiscated.
The Korean Supreme Court ruled that Japanese companies are responsible for paying Korean workers who were forced to do labor during World War II at Japanese companies.
Many South Korean consumers have since been boycotting Japanese goods, demanding an apology. The annual trilateral summit that rotates between East Asia's 3 major economies has occasionally been suspended in the past due to political turmoil here in South Korea, but also because of long-standing tensions between Japan and its 2 neighbors. So, can China help repair the strained ties?
I think it's another complicated party, though having a 3rd member there may mean that everybody will act more calmly and more nicely.
A resolution is needed if all 3 are to turn their attention to another big but equally difficult task.
Given that both the United States and Europe are going protectionist, I think Korea, Japan, and China recognizes that they actually, if they combined, they will have roughly the same economic size as US and EU. So they recognize the necessity.
The benefit will be huge, but I don't think that's going to happen because there are too many issues.
There is also the recognized necessity of working together on regional security, especially after recent missile launches and rocket engine tests by the DPRK amid faltering nuclear diplomacy with Washington. Jack Barton, CGTN, Seoul.
This is Asia Outlook broadcasting live from Myanmar International Radio. On FM, make sure you catch us on 96.1 FM in Yangon, 96.5 in Mandalay, and 96.7 in Naypyidaw. You can also download MRI Radio app on both iOS and Android devices for your own convenience. A Russia communication official has said that the country's internet services could function if the country were cut off from the World Wide Web. The announcement was made on Monday after a series of tests were completed. Testing ran several days on a specifically designated networks. It follows a sovereign internet bill introduced in November in response to the U.S. National Cybersecurity Strategy. State-run institutions and security services, as well as all communication operators, messengers, and email providers, participated in the tests. Irregular internet users is not affected. The Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics Organizing Committee has announced the Chinese, English, and French versions of the sport program at the Games. The announcement came after negotiation with several related departments, including China's State General Administration of Sport and the International Olympic Committee. The 2022 Winter Olympic Games will include skiing, skating, ice hockey, curling, luge, and biathlon. The winter showpiece in Beijing also consists of 50 disciplines, including alpine skiing and snowboard, with 109 events. 7 new events will be included in the Games, including the women's monoboard, free ski men and women in big air. Meanwhile, the 2022 Paralympic Winter Games will have 78 events. The 2019 Chinese Bridge Chinese Proficiency Competition for Foreigners in Beijing, which attracted some 400 competitors from 58 countries and regions across the globe. The final competition was held on Friday in Beijing. Lara Parapin tells us more.
只有你一个人在家，小家伙。对呀，不光。
This competitor, who plays Snow White and the Evil Queen, is an American student studying at Peking University. 400 contestants have now been whittled down to 14 in the final competition. After 3 rounds of dubbing Chinese classic film and television productions, Chu Yumin from Myanmar won first place.
他是真的战死了。是。战死在哪里？
Chu's Mandarin is better than some native Chinese speakers, and this is only her first year in China. She studied Chinese for 10 years in Myanmar. She says studying Chinese will help her career.
Since China has a large population, there are Chinese in any country you go. If you can speak Chinese, you will be happy to be able to communicate with many people. I'm studying Chinese international education now. I will take Chinese culture back to Myanmar as a teacher.
Besides pursuing her career goal, Chu enjoys her life in China a lot.
I'm happy. I have so many friends who hang out and eat with me every day, and there is so much delicious food in China.
One of the judges says Chinese education is infused with the country's long history and rich culture and more.
Our education also pays attention to the current development of Chinese society, so international students in China do not only study on campus, but they can also experience the positive lifestyle and study the reality off campus.
Chinese Bridge was established in 2002, and since then, it has held all kinds of Chinese competitions for foreigners. It says it has attracted 1.4 million young people from more than 150 countries, and officials say it's a bridge of peace.
I hope these bilingual people who are proficient in Chinese and their own languages can play a role in economic development, social exchange, and language and cultural exchange, and contribute to the friendship between China and other countries.
The official says China welcomes people from all over the world to come and build a community with a shared future. Lara Parpan, CGTN, Beijing.
Aceh province was closest to the earthquake. Governor Nova Irani Shah told mourners at a ceremony on Thursday, quote, "The people in Aceh were able to overcome suffering and rise again, thanks to assistance from all Indonesians and from people all over the world," end quote. Businesses were closed, boats could not sail, and flags were flown at half-staff in remembrance of those who died. The Thai Prime Minister has ordered an urgent review of the country's parole system after a serial killer released from prison for model behavior was believed to have murdered for the 6th time. The suspect was recaptured by police. CTN's Marlowe reports.
Acting on a tip-off, police arrested the wanted man on a train heading to Bangkok following a major manhunt. Somkit Phumpuang was dubbed Thailand's Jack the Ripper after murdering 5 women in 2005. He was sentenced to death, commuted to life in prison because he confessed, but freed on parole in May this year. 7 months later, he's believed to have killed again after befriending a woman on Facebook. Hotel maid Razmi Mulichan was found suffocated at home with a wire around her neck and her wrists and ankles tied. Police said her killer had moved in with her a few days earlier. Somkit's fingerprints, clothing and paperwork relating to his car were allegedly found at the scene at Khon Kaen in northern Thailand. The Thai Department of Corrections said Somkit was considered suitable for early release because he'd been a model prisoner. But following this new murder, the full circumstances of his parole are now the subject of a major review. Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has ordered a review of the country's entire early release program and automatic sentence reduction for pleading guilty. But with one of the largest jail populations in the world, the Thai prison service is bursting at the seams, operating at 3 times capacity.
By law, every prisoner in Thailand has the chance of early release. That's why even a serial killer was given this benefit. It doesn't matter what the crime was. But I think the law should be changed. The most serious offenders have to serve their full sentence to protect society.
Somkit's earlier victims had all worked at karaoke bars or massage parlours in northeastern Thailand. Police were alerted after he was spotted by fellow passengers travelling on a train to the Thai capital. The original Jack the Ripper was a serial killer who targeted sex workers in London in the 1800s. Martin Lowe, CGTN, Bangkok.
In recent years has seen an increasing number of cybercrimes in China. New forms of fraud have emerged, keeping pace with technological development. Voices over the telephone could be fake, so can account information and the identity of people you meet online. A lack of supervision and relevant laws have also led to a deteriorating situation.
Whom do you think the voice belongs to? Feeling alone away from home, a man surnamed Lee met a girl online, or he thought. She claimed she's an internet broadcaster.
It was the voice of a girl and it sounds sweet. I thought it must be her when I heard it.
The girl then asked him for money and instantly blacklisted him after receiving it. Turned out his crush was a man.
I was shocked to know that it was a man. It made me feel that I'm too young and naive.
Lee is one of the countless victims of cyber crimes. Behind the screen, some are using voice modifiers or downloading voices of real people from internet to swindle money. Others are even making fake videos with modified voices to attract business.
The proliferation of these scam tools makes it very cheap for companies and individuals to use. The gradual deviation from the principle of good faith has impacted the construction of a social credit system in China.
A draft on protecting personal information was included in the legislative planning on the 13th NPC Standing Committee in 2018. That's China's top legislature. From 2016 to 2018, there were about 48,000 reported cases of cyber crimes. The number in 2017 rose by a third, and in 2018 by more than half. More than 40% of the internet crimes are carried out on popular messaging app WeChat, followed by another, QQ, and payment app Alipay. Most perpetrators target their victims by pretending to be a female friend or acquaintance, followed by hiring managers and potential love interest. Amid the increasing number of such crimes, there have been stronger calls for online platforms to shoulder more responsibilities. Xin Ruinan, CGTN.
According to the Asahi Shimbun, the number of babies born in 2019 fell to 864,000, decreasing by more than 6%. Japan's Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare says it's the first time since 1899 that the number of births dipped below 900,000. NPR reports the health ministry says the number of people of reproductive age is declining, which is leading to the decrease in babies. Younger women are also choosing their careers over marriage and children. Marriage rates in the country have also decreased. Japan also has its highest number of deaths in 2019. Almost 1.4 million people died, the most number of people since World War II. Another factor is the so-called total fertility rate. The birth rate necessary to keep a population from shrinking is widely considered to be around 2 children per woman. Japan's TFR is well below that. A Japanese government agency has proposed releasing radioactive water from the stricken Fukushima nuclear plant into the environment as storage space runs out. The plant suffered a meltdown about 9 years ago after it was hit by an earthquake-triggered tsunami. About 1 million tons of contaminated water has built up since then, and the tanks that hold it are almost full. The government's Agency for Natural Resources and Energy on Monday proposed 3 ways to deal with the water: releasing it into the sea, into the air using vaporization or combination of the two. An extensive pumping and filtration system is in place at the plant, which each day brings up tons of newly contaminated water and filters out almost all radioactive elements. The process leaves only a tritinium, which experts say is only harmful to humans in very large doses. No decision was taken at the Monday's meeting. The panel has been discussing how to dispose of the liquid for years, and no deadline has been set for it to report to the government. That is the end of international news. Now we take a look at what is happening around Myanmar with our local news. State Councilor and Union Minister for Foreign Affairs Do Aung San Suu Kyi received Yamaguchi Natsuo, the Upper House MP and the chief representative of Koimeito Party, which is a partner of the current coalition government, at her residence in Bahan Township in Yangon on Monday. During the meeting, the delegation, accompanied by Japanese ambassador to Myanmar Ichiro Maruyama, held talks on promotion of bilateral relations, business and investment, tourism, infrastructure development, future socio-economic development programs for Myanmar, assistance for peace, national reconciliation, and democratic transitions of Myanmar, and developments in Rakhine State. And that's all we have for today's Asia Outlook on MI Radio. Thank you for being with us. I'm Melody. We'll be back next week. Until next time.